I don't hear anything yet. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Wanted to welcome everybody. Inshallah, we're going to be concluding our lecture series with Maulana Asad Jafri. Again, on behalf of the community, really found this series very productive. Wanted to welcome everybody. Inshallah, we're going to be concluding our lecture series with Maulana. Sorry, just let me try to mute that audio. Before we get started, again, very sadly, would like to request everybody to recite a Surah Fatiha for Shaheen Auntie Binte Sakhlain Zaidi, our duas and for the family on her passing. And for those, please recite a Salat al-Isha. The burial did take place today. And so I'm going to recite a Surah Fatiha. Bismillah. With that, again, for those who haven't participated in any of the prior sessions, they are all on YouTube on the Zainabia Center channel. If you want to catch up or listen to them again, at the end of the session, we'll have Q&A with Maulana. And so you can either unmute yourself, ask the question directly. You can put the question on the chat, and then I can relay that question to Maulana. Or if you want to directly text message me, I put my message, my cell phone number on the thread, and I will ask your question to Maulana. And so with that, I will invite Maulana if you are ready, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Mawlana Akbar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وهو خير الناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. If I can as well, if you don't mind, request a Surah Fatiha for the marhuma that passed away today, marhuma Shaheen Zaidi bint Sayyid Muhammad Sakhlain Zaidi, your marhumin and mine and the shuhada, please. Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Also, my condolences to the Imam of our time and to all of you on the days of Fatimiyya. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our gham and our grief and not give us any grief except for the grief of Ali Muhammad, inshallah. As was announced, today is the last Wednesday of December. And for the past now 5 Wednesdays in this month, we've been looking at the 7 different principles of an Islamic family. And the topic, after some debate, was agreed upon based on the fact that we are right now in a pandemic. Many of us have isolated, we're in quarantine, or at least, our schedules, our social calendar now has completely been flipped upside down. And so we find ourselves to be with our families, our nuclear family, quite a bit more than usual. And so I thought it was a good idea to revisit some of these principles that have been given to us by Imam Sadiq. The base of our discussion has been revolving around a book called The Lantern of the Path, which is available online in English. And in there, in the very first chapter on Ubudiyya, he talks about these 7 principles on how to conduct ourselves with other individuals. Now, we've spoken about 5 of the 7, and as promised, today being the last one, I will go through 6 and 7. But inshallah, these are discussions that are meant to be practically applied. Not simply, to be a theoretical discussion at all. Islam is a very practical deen. Islam is a deen of fa'al, of action. And, we need to start to apply what we learn. Now, up until now, we've talked about many things, from forbearance to forgiveness, from humility to compassion, It's important that we understand, some of these more fundamental discussions on a broader sense. Today's discussion, let me go ahead and share my screen with all of you so we can get started, inshallah. Again, if I can ask you all to please mute yourself if you don't mind, that'll be great. Thank you. So we've been looking at, like I said, 7 principles of a successful family was a better title. And we, like I said, these are not my principles. These are given to us by the Ahlebaith. And like I said, the source of them is the book of Lantern of the Path. Let me get to my slides for today, inshallah, and then we will begin. The 6th principle that is key for a successful family is seeking advice. Okay. Now, I need to go through 2 principles today in the hour that I have. I want to give at least 10 minutes for Q&A to make sure, and then I have to do a hard finish at 8 o'clock. I have an 8:15 class Eastern that I have to start. That I have to get to as well. So this is, to me, one of those principles that really need our attention. We are, and when I say we, I mean the Indo-Pak South Asian community. We for some reason we put a lot of emphasis on how we present ourselves and our families to others. What the reality is behind the door, behind the scenes, inside of us, sometimes is completely opposite of what we actually present to our outside masses. And we have this shame culture that sometimes we live, where we would rather live, in difficulty and turmoil and chaos inside of our homes than present that chaos to others, right? So, there's no sort of movement to get help, seek help, ask for advice, because that might entail me to tell you that I've lost control of my family, or that, I need help. And sometimes, and I'm very general here, I know, but sometimes I think the pride comes in, where we actually see it as a symbol of my weakness and my failure and my inability now to go ahead and ask others for advice. When in reality, Islam has highly promoted the idea of seeking advice of others. And here I not only mean, the advice of those who are parents like yourself, or youth like yourself, but also within the family unit, to make sure that we pick and choose moments where we empower our children, empower our spouse by asking them what they think, or what their advice is, or what their suggestion is, or what their thoughts are on this. If not for any other reason than for making them feel like they belong to the tribe. I have been harping on tribalism for the past now 5 Wednesdays with all of you. All of this now, from forbearance to humility to compassion to love to forgiveness to all these things, all of these things were, they scream one major concept, and that is that we have to ensure that our children, our spouses are all bought into the tribe at home. The 5 of us, the 4 of us, the 6 of us, we're one nation, we're one unit, we're one movement towards God. We're not 6 different roommates inside the home, right? Which means that, as I've been saying, there has to be a family identity set by the husband and the wife. There has to be a culture inside the house. There has to be some decisions and sacrifices made in order for you to fulfill and actualize that identity. Okay, this is no different. Okay, when we now identify a person in my home to be someone that maybe I can actually learn from, or if not for anything else, maybe they feel like they're on the outside looking into the family. It's at that moment that we bring them in by doing what? By asking them for their advice. Doesn't matter. Could be your 7-year-old daughter, or it could be your wife beside you. Okay. Something as mundane as, what do you guys want for dinner tonight? To something as huge as, should we move and buy a new house? Right? When you begin to do that, you begin to be an inclusive family and not a dictating one where, look, I'm going to tell you no, not like that. And if I had more time, I'll talk about the fact that especially if you have teenage children at home, from the age of 14 to about 2021, that really is the ideal time for you to tap into that resource and get them to give you advice and actually ask them, what do you think? And then, actually apply what they're suggest if it's feasible, right? That way, you're making your son, your daughter who's 14, 15 now feel like not only did Baba ask me what I think, but he's actually going to go ahead and implement my suggestion inside the home. I mean, it's huge, right? It's you're sending such a strong message that you are an important part of this tribe, and you are an intelligent one, and we actually all of us are going to go in the direction that you tell us to go to for this one specific thing, okay? First of all, let's understand that in this era, to raise a family, it takes a village. It takes a village, okay? I mean, I oftentimes say this, that sometimes my mom, doesn't live with me, but sometimes my mom comes and visits and spends a few days with us, and the kids love it, when Dadi is here, and she'll watch us during the week, right? I have 3 kids now. Take one kid, and my wife is with her doing her assignments, her works, her readings, her spelling, I don't know, her science for a project, and then I'm with the other kid doing their assignments or helping them with their math homework, helping them, cut out some things for their Bristol board. And I remember one time my mom had said something that it really like made me realize. She said, I don't remember doing any of this stuff with you guys. You guys would come home, and I don't remember hours and hours of homework. I don't remember the fact that me and your father had to be this heavily involved. I mean, I have, my daughter's in grade 2, my middle one, grade 2. And there we are, an hour and a half every night, just kind of, So she said, Zamana Waqin badal gaya, it's completely a different era. I said, yeah, it is, Mom. I mean, not only is it the idea that the husband and the father, if you have the husband and the wife have to be heavily involved in both of their kids, have to be present. You can be in the house, but you're absent. I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about emotionally, mentally being invested in the child along with the spouse. Those days are gone. If you have the luxury, and it is a luxury, that you have both parents at home, then both parents have to be there. It's completely unfair and unrealistic, and you won't get the results that you want if every ounce of the tarbiyat is on the shoulders of one parent. And because they're not complaining, because they're not saying anything, oh, it's okay, she's handling it or he's handling it. No. Now, if you are a single parent, then, may Allah give you more patience and more strength, all the power to you, that's why I have the utmost respect for single parents in our communities. So it's important that not only are we present, but we seek the advice of others. And that means other parents, other families. If you see a family that is successful, they've raised, well-behaved kids, successful kids, whatever success is to you, that could be, success in terms of their career and their studies. It could be success in terms of their akhlaq and their deen, whatever it is. We have to create the culture to pick up the phone and say, look, I'd like to know what you did with your son. My son right now is 8. I'm having this issue, blah, blah, blah. What did you do? Right? It's okay to do that. It doesn't make you a failing father, doesn't make you a horrible mother. In fact, if you ask me, I have the utmost respect for people who say, look, I'm doing something wrong with my daughter. She's rebellious. She talks back. She does what she wants. She's only 8 years old. I see your daughter. She's 11. She's 12. What am I doing wrong? Do we have that culture inside of us? Partly we don't ask, and the other part is we don't get the proper answer from people, right? So there has to be a little bit of a culture shift sometimes, especially in our Indo-Pak communities, right? It's not blasphemous, bhai, to go out and ask people for advice, right? So let's try to change that. Now, I want to go through one hadith by Imam Ali, which I found to be very strong, and then one verse of the Quran, just to show all of you that this is absolutely a discussion inside the deen. Imam Ali now talks about the dangers of what's called istabadda. Istabadda is the idea of someone stubbornly now holding on to their opinion. No, it's just no, right? That's stubbornness sometimes. He says in the hadith, it's right in front of you, right? Man istabadda bi ra'yihi halak. The one who acts solely according to their own opinion, their stubbornness, their rigidness, their unwillingness to bend, they will be halak. They'll be finished. They'll be ruined. They'll lose the respect of the ones around them. They'll fail at what they do, and in the process, now they end up now inflating an ego that has no business being inflated to begin with. Instead, he says, وَمَنْ شَاوَرَ الرِّجَالَ شَارِكَهَا فِي أُقُولِهَا. And the one who consults others, other people, shares in their understanding. If you see somebody, for example, who you think has it together, they're a strong person, they're logical, they're reasonable, they're raising great kids, strong family, strong marriage, and you begin to ask them, what did you do? And you begin to implement what they did, then you actually share in their aql, you share in their understanding. Okay? The deen does not call for us to be stubborn. This is not a moment for you to show off your wilayat or your power, or I'm the man, what I say goes, and you rule the family with an iron fist. Absolutely not. No, I mean you're a lot of you are married to spouses that are intelligent, educated, wise, very smart. But some of them stay quiet because they know that, doesn't matter if I say anything, it's not going to be taken for anything that is serious, right? So, it's a shame sometimes that we have those resources available around us and we don't use them. Okay. Now, this verse from Surah, Ali Imran is a very beautiful one. This is one where Allah now is guiding the Prophet of Allah on how to deal with the people of Mecca. Okay. And he's telling the Prophet some secrets of trying to guide the people of the era of Jahiliyyah. It's a famous verse. It's one that I find to be incredible. But look at what he says. This is Allah. This is Allah's wahi, not hadith, not some alim saying. This is directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It is due to the mercy of Allah that you deal with them gently. I mean, all of us, it's very well known how difficult his time in Mecca, his 13 years in Mecca was, culminating with that Shibi Abu Talib of 3 years of absolute, tough sanctions and almost torture-like behavior with him and his followers. And the Prophet time and time again is told to be gentle, be patient, be gentle, be patient. And that, of course, is, as the verse says, rahmatan min Allah. That's from the mercy of Allah. And then he says, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Right? That had you been rough with them, had you been hard-hearted with them, they would have left you. They would have ran from you. Right? And this is where he begins to give the Prophet advice. He says, فَعْفُوا عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. And seek forgiveness for them. Beautiful, right? Not only is Allah saying to forgive them, but now become an ambassador for them for my mercy. So not only should you show your mercy, but beg me to show me my mercy to them. And then he says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And take counsel with them in the affair. Seek their advice. Ask them for their opinion. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. And so when you have decided, then place your trust in Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. Allah loves those who trust. Allah is saying, look, these people are not, he's not saying that, sorry. These people are not at his level, the Prophet of Allah's. Okay, he's getting direct command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's getting direct command from the creator of this universe. Okay, and yet still Allah is saying, still ask them, right? Do mashfarat, as you say in Urdu, right? It's the same root word. It's the same word in Arabic and in Farsi. The idea of mashawara or mashfara, they say in Urdu, but mashawir they say sometimes in Farsi, right? It's asking them for advice. Again, the idea of the inclusive nature of the Prophet of Allah. And so we see, for example, in the war of Khandaq, the war of Ahzab, the war, the word Ahzab literally means a trench. And as you know, in that war, in the war of Khandak now, the Muslims had dug a pretty deep trench around their camp to, to kind of, deter the enemy from getting any closer. Whose idea was that? That was Salman al-Farsi's idea. Salman al-Farsi had said, Ya Rasulullah, what if we did this? And the Prophet loved that so much that, he actually implemented. Now, not only are you allowing a companion to feel like you're involved, but now you're making someone who's a non-Arab make him feel like, you know what, you're one of us. You're one of us, right? So we have to be able to do that now, right? If the Prophet is asked to do that for his companions, we also should do that with our families and also with others in the community. Okay. Now, there's an art to it, right? There's an art to giving and seeking advice. There's, first of all, the beauty of asking others. And please, I ask you, don't, this is not a pride issue, an ego issue. It's okay. I don't have to ask about, he's my son, he's my daughter. I know it. Wait a second, there's no harm in asking, right? I remember, my wife and I spoke to a family in the US. This is, a few months back. And mashallah, they have a large family and they're quite successful. And we sat there and the person was over speakerphone and her and I took notes. Everything from teach them typing to to make sure that their speed and precision in their work, right? Fix their writing. So this entire pandemic, and during this Christmas break now, we've been working on the younger kids and their cursive writing, or make sure you write in the lines, make sure you count your punctuation. Those small things, yeah, we get it. But those things are actually very important, right? They build speed and they build precision. Right, your reading has to be up to par. Ask them to join an online typing course. Right, get them to do more puzzles. So lately I've been going crazy with ordering puzzles for the kids. Right, this person has 1,000-piece puzzle. This person has 200 pieces, and you should, it builds the brain. Right, those things we didn't get from our own brains. We got from other families that we asked. Right, what did you do? Right, I really pushed, for example, the idea of sports. I really pushed the idea of balance. Right, they played hard and they worked hard. Right. So, this is not a spot for ego. This is not your manly ego saying, no, I'm good. No, we can all use help, right? So the beauty, number one, is that you're protecting the ones you love the most, right? Think about what you're doing. You are asking others to help you raise the perfect being, right? So now what you're doing is you are asking for the right tools to now give to your child so they could succeed. Has nothing to do with you whatsoever. In fact, the idea of seeking advice for your kids is for your kids, right? If we claim to love them like we do, and we all do love our kids, then part of it is the idea of giving them all the right wings and right tools to fly in this universe. Number two, broadens your insights and worldview. When you speak to somebody and you see their approach, right, it kind of breaks down the walls, it breaks down the narrow-mindedness, it breaks down the tunnel vision, and makes you actually realize, oh, wait a second, that also works. Wow, I had no idea that works. And sometimes you can ask people who aren't quote unquote religious, and they'll give you a different insight about how they raise their kids, how their family is so strong. You're like, whoa, I never even thought to ask someone like you who's so disconnected with the deen and the community, but you've given me a different insight, right? So when Imam Ali says that even a hypocrite has something to offer, take it from them and apply it into your own life, then that's what he means. Broaden your insight, broaden your worldview, right? And number three, it builds a network of people around you, right? You begin now to have circles, right? Like mommy groups and parent groups, and and these things are very important for not only for our own tarbiyat, but for the development of our community as well. Now, there's art and also in giving advice as well. MashaAllah, there are many of us who are ready, man. You say the word and that's it. I'll give you, I have 1,000 things to say, right? And there are some people who, mashallah, they give advice even though I never asked you for your advice, right? So number one is only give advice when you're asked. I mean, I get it sometimes, this apnapana, as you say in Urdu, right? This idea that, okay, I can tell this because I'm close to you and, I've seen you raise, I have uncles from my community that have seen me since I was 5, 6 year old kids. Tell me about, next time read this topic and next time ye padhiyo, wo padhiyo, ainda jo hai ye mat misal dijiye. Okay, uncle, no problem, right? And then they always tell me afterwards, I say it because you're my son. I go, yes, absolutely, I'm your son. Right? So sometimes, when we see, like a mother in the center, her kids are running around and she seems to have lost control of her kids, or the kid's crying a lot, or let's say, for example, she brings a bunch of snacks, or and we always have that one person that tells us, that snack is unhealthy, you should try this, right? Try not to bring a whole suitcase with you to the majlis, iPad, coloring books, blocks, blah blah blah, right? Your kid is on the screen too much, for example, right? Get rid of the pacifier. Okay, I never asked you, but okay, thank you very much, right? You never know whose situation is what. Number one is, if you are someone who mashallah loves to give advice, and there's mashallah so many of you out there, then just wait until you're asked. Number two is empathize right away. The person's coming to you only when they realize that I need help. So first of all, encouraging words, right? Look, I've been seeing you, you're doing great. Honestly, you're doing great. I haven't seen many husbands like you or fathers like you that bring the kid inside the hall and and this and that. I've seen you guys, you're working very hard. You obviously have sacrificed a lot. And so, mashallah, I'm very, very empathize, sympathize, right? Right away, make them feel like not all is lost. And then finally, encourage them, right? There's one more. Give them confidence in themselves. That, look, this is what worked for me, but maybe it doesn't work for you. But I know that you two are very smart individuals. You're pious people. You come from great families. Whatever you guys decide to do, it'll be the best for your family. This is what we did. You might want to try it. That's fine, right? But I know, knowing you and knowing your work ethic and knowing your sincerity, everything will be all right. Take a deep breath, recite salawat, pray to Allah, maybe implement these things, right? But give them that confidence. Right? Let them discover the fact that they're not the worst mother in the world, the worst father in the world. Right? There's actually some good inside of them. And finally, not every situation applies to every kid or every marriage. Right? This absoluteness that we have. No, wait. Why is that wajib? Like, why do I have to do that? I mean, it doesn't apply here, right? Give them, like I said before, look, this is what we tried, but I don't know how your kid is. Some kids are sensitive, some kids are not sensitive, some kids are lazy, some kids are, they need to be kind of motivated, some kids need constant validation, other kids are they have a lot of self-play, independent, others are very dependent. But, don't assume that you know what happens in their house. Right? You can provide advice without going into like the DNA of the family and the blood type and the shoe size. And you can say, look, these are some overall principles that my spouse and I were quite adamant about. Right? I don't know if it might work for you, but you can try it. Right? And then you being the one who takes that advice, you have to adjust that towards your particular situation. So, in this sixth principle, please, I ask myself, if you are somebody who feels like you guys are drowning, or you guys could use the help, or maybe it's not a bad idea, or why even wait till you're drowning? It's not a bad idea to always get a different insight, right? I find it a nice bonding technique between siblings when now they begin to enter the stage of parenthood together, maybe a couple of years apart, right? Like my younger brother and I have the same age daughters, right? And we always bounce, how is she here? How is she there? This and that. Yeah, that's and I find that not only do we bond as brothers, but we actually end up, and it's okay. But this idea of the shame culture, please, you're trying to now protect your investment, being your children, build your strength and empower your investment. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what people might say. It's not shameful, blasphemous, nothing like that if you ask for help. Okay. And like I said in the beginning, before I move on to the last principle, it's important that we also ask advice from each other in the house. So for example, small things, right? If you decide to have a board game nights with your family, the 3 of you, the 4 of you, the 5 of you, right? Maybe ask your youngest one, what game would you like to play? Well, I want to play this with Bob. Okay, let's do that. And okay, and he'll run and he'll sprint. He'll get the game. His eyes will light up. Right? These small things are very important. Right? If you have a CD of nasheeds and naats and manqabats, and maybe walk into the car when you're about to drive and ask one child. I'm going to give you the first crack. What would you like to listen to right now? I want track number 8, for example. Okay, sounds good. right? These things right away give them identity, they empower them, they make them feel like they belong to where? The tribe. It's all about the tribe, okay? That is principle number 6, okay? On to the last principle, which is adl and the adalat, right? Justice and fairness. Adl and insaf, okay? Now, a lot to say here. I don't have much time. I want to make sure I'm done by 7:50. That gives me less than 20 minutes. It is a massive topic, but a couple examples that I want to use to bring the point home. Number one is the famous gardener example that I've often used in my speeches. And please hear me out. If you have multiple children at home, this example actually applies. So you think about a gardener and what his role is, or what her role is. And they are in charge. Let's say they have a flower bed to look after. Their job, or the value or the measuring stick of how good of a gardener they are, is their knowledge of each flower in the flower bed. A successful gardener will provide each flower the various tools it specifically needs to grow. Okay? A failed gardener is one that applies the same amount of water, the same amount of sunshine, the exact same food to everything. A rose grows differently, a tulip grows differently, a carnation grows differently. I don't know, a daffodil grows differently. Is that even, that is a flower, right? A daffodil? A dandelion, a daffodil. Yeah. Am I thinking about a cartoon character? No, I'm not. I think I'm good. So all these different flowers grow differently, right? Imam Ali, now in a summarized, I'm paraphrasing the hadith, he says that you are the gardener and your children are the flowers in that garden, right? A failed parent is the one that applies the exact same tarbiyat and upbringing to all of the children. A successful parent is one that identifies each of these flowers requires something unique to all three of them, okay? There are individuals who require, like I said, constant validation. I have one kid of mine who has to hug me 10 times a day, okay? She makes cards to me every single day. I love you, Baba, you're the best, this and that. You know, I pray that you're beside Imam and Zamana. And then there's others, you know, my eldest doesn't really need to do that, right? My young guy needs to work on, we have a handshake, my son and I, the younger one. So he's got to change the handshake every single time. So sometimes it's, you know, pat, right? Then there are those that are independently, they can play on their own. And then there are those that like to include the entire family. Whatever the case may be, you have multiple flowers inside of your, even if you have one flower, one child inside of your home, it's important that you recognize what they need to grow. And you give it. Okay. Failed parenting, like I said, is one who raises their kids and raises all their kids the exact same way. Okay. Number two is we're going to be balanced and fair in raising the kids, especially when it comes to sons and daughters. It is a huge problem that we have, and one that I talk about a lot. And I am sometimes a little bit harsh when it comes to this topic because I've seen it too many times, and people don't like what I have to say. And I'm sorry, this is not a contest of you know, I'm not trying to be the most popular here, but a lot of the marriage, and I'm sorry to say, a lot of the marriage problems that we see right now, in especially young couples or couples from the West, stems from the fact that, you know, this guy didn't have the maturity to be married. You know, he was raised to be a man-child. He was raised to have his chicken deboned. He was raised to have his food served on a tray. He was raised to have his clothes folded after laundry. You know, and you know, with that sort of habits, he was now given to this poor girl to marry, with the assumption he had that, you know, when she would do the exact same thing that my mom would do. And we end up raising our daughters now and prepping them that one day you'll be a wife, you'll be a mother, you'll be a daughter-in-law, you'll be a sister-in-law. Ye karna, wo karna, ye karna, wo karna, right? Hatta to the point what to wear in front of your father-in-law, what spoon to put in the karai chicken, right? What plates are proper for dessert, what plates are proper, let's say, for, you know, For nahari, like for nahari, you have to have a piala, right? You have to one of those deep, like you can never put a flat plate if you're if you're serving nahari. It's gotta have a little bit of a deepness to it, right? So the shorba's in there, and either you break the pieces like Ahlebaith do, or you sit there and you get your fingernails all yellow and greasy like us Pakistanis do. But if you put the wrong plate, right? And we do all that for our daughters, right? How to handle non-mahram men, the volume of your laugh, where to sit, right? We do all that for our girls. Do we do any of that for our boys? Do we ever train them? You're going to be the wali of your house one day. You're going to lead. And it doesn't mean that you only have a 9-to-5 job. Everything. You are the spiritual leader. You are the financial leader. You are the moral leader. You are the emotional leader. You are the wali, right? Are we raising mehnati and hardworking boys? Right? Or is it okay for the guy to sit there and play Fortnite or PS5 for like 5 hours, but after an hour you're going to call down your daughter and say, come and help me, cut the piyaz and the onions for the masala. So we have to be, fair and balanced and show insaf when it comes to raising our boys and girls alike. Right? If you're going to embrace one child, embrace another. If you're going to give one child a gift, give another. If you're going to sit there and compliment one child in front of the other, compliment the other child as well. But this issue now of the fact that, we raise our daughters, for 20 years from now, and we don't raise our boys for 20 years from now, has to stop. Alhamdulillah, I think things are changing. But I think ultimately, it has to be with a little bit more speed. Okay? Now, this idea of justice is not only for others, right? It starts from within ourselves. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawamina bil qist shuhada'a lillahi walau ala anfusikum. Right? All you who believe, maintain justice. Be the qawamin of justice. Establish it. Doesn't mean you act justly. You have to create a system of justice. Right? So that you become the witness, or you become people who others can witness and say, look, I want to be like that person, even if that means that you are just with yourself, right? Or your parents, awil walidaini wal aqrabin, or your family, right? Justice has to be the pillar of our families. When it comes to everything from discipline to reward, to balancing our day out, right? We can't have somebody sitting there, for 10 hours a day now, just doing work, and there's no time to play, there's no time to rest, there's no time to socialize, nothing. It has to be balanced, right? And in this day now where a lot of our travel outside the home is limited, it becomes an increasingly difficult challenge now to find that balance of time inside the home. Like we are on complete lockdown right now in my city. We can't go anywhere. We had so many plans this Christmas break, but it didn't happen. Right? I have family in the US. We have family overseas, and we thought, let's grab a flight and go. We went last year, and the kids loved it, and I just wanted to show them the world, right? Anyways, so now it becomes a challenge now to fill their day up, right? Without it being a screen-heavy day. So, it's important that we understand the importance of that. Now, let's make a clear distinction between these 4 terms. Okay? And sometimes I think that we have them a little bit messed up. Let's go through these four images very carefully and understand what exactly we're talking about here, right? Because we think equality and justice are the exact same thing, and they're not even close, right? So the first instance of the apple tree now, one boy is getting an apple from the tree, and the other one is not getting it. That's inequality, right? So one does not get, and the other one does get. Okay, easy enough. So equality says, all right, let's give one a ladder, let's give the other a ladder. Okay, but still, because of the fact that the tree is bent towards the left, the one on the left, even though they have the same ladder, the one on the left now has access to the apples, the one on the right doesn't have access to the apples, even though the same size of ladder was given. But the tree, right? The tree is the problem. The third one is equity. Fine, equity means, okay, if one side is tilted, let's give one a specific tool to reach that level that is a little bit bent, and let's keep the other guy on that side. So for example, that one kid on the right who's been deprived an apple for the first 2 instances now has an apple, but the cost is he has to be given a specific and a very a specially designed ladder for him and for him alone, right? That model, you can't uphold that model. You can't sustain the model to give everybody a specific tool to be able now to gather or to benefit from what they're trying to achieve from the tree. The final one is justice. And if you'll notice, in all 4 of these, the first 3, the tree is bent to the left. The 4th one, that is justice, actually has the ladders are the exact same, right? The kids are the exact same. The difference is that they've now used props to now fix the bend in the tree. The tree is the system. The system has to be upright. Right now, we're watching, what's happening right now all the world, and specifically in your country, in the US, with this racial divide. It's not just about, giving a certain minority. No, it's about the system. The system has to be upright, right? So now when the system is upright, everybody with the exact same tools now, right, with the exact same resume, should be able to land the same job, right? It's not that, someone has to have more experience to land the same job that a guy that has less experience just grabbed, moments ago, right? So that third picture is the fact that, fine, they're both eating the apple. What's the problem? The problem is that one guy has to climb higher up the ladder, the other one doesn't, right? For the exact same result. That's not justice, right? What fault is it of his that the tree is bending towards the right, right? So now the 4th one, which is justice, is let's get a proper system up. Let's put up boards, let's prop up, let's fix the bend, give each of them the exact same size of ladder, and then watch them benefit equally from the system, in this case being the apple tree. Okay, I hope that makes sense, right? Same way inside of our homes, it's not just moments of justice. We have to create a system, an identity, a culture where we are parenting, where we are loving, where we are, we are worshiping, all based on justice and fairness. That means everything from balancing our diet, to balancing our time, to balancing our love, to balancing our tarbiyat. Then so be it. When it comes time to worship Allah, we put down everything and worship God. When it comes time to pray, I will laugh as hard as anybody else. When it comes time to play sports with my kid, I will work on my jump shot all day long with him. Everything has to have the proper place and time for it, right? Literally, the definition of adalat is to place something in its appropriate place, and injustice is to move something from its designed place where it's supposed to be. Okay, so I these terms are sometimes used loosely in the media today, and sometimes I think a lot of our kids and our youth are a little bit, what's wrong with equality? That's why Islam has a very bold statement that we are not advocates of equality, we're advocates of justice, right? And in this whole gender debate, sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. We are looking to present that second image on your screen right now. They both have the exact same ladder, right? That's equality. What's the problem now? Well, you're assuming the system is not corrupt or the system is not bent, right? Once you have the same amount of ladders and the system is upright, then of course you can expect the results that you want to expect. So that's that's our talk for today, and that's our final talk for the month of December. I'll end my share and go ahead and open up the floors for any questions. So, Mom, if you're not asleep yet, then Bismillah, you can chime in.
No, Assalamu alaikum again. Thank you again. So if anybody has questions, again, please feel free. Take the advantage of having the Maulana before he has to run to his other lecture. Again, you can either ask your question directly, type it on the chat and I'll ask for you, or I put myself on there. So I'll give a second in case somebody has.
Yeah, sure, no problem. While we're waiting, I wanted to thank Al Ajal and the Ahlebaith Association and Zainabiyya for this opportunity. It really is, I enjoy doing these things more so than anything else, and I'm thankful to the whole team to include me and to give me an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
So one question I had let's say you have, family situation is, 100%, dysfunctional.
Yeah.
You presented your series in a certain order. I mean, if you're going to say, is that intentional to say, okay, address, this first before this, before that, like, is there kind of a recommended systematic way to kind of, bring yourself back to kind of fixing the family unit?
That's a really good question. So no, this was not like a first in, first out, or this was not in any particular order for sure. If you're asking me on the spot, not that you are, but if I was to give an answer on the spot of which one of these are the most important, I would say the last one is the one that we just presented, number 7. So maybe it's last in and first out, right? So it's hard, and I agree. It's quite daunting to look at all 7 and present all 7 and try to implement all 7. So I think that if you can, and they're all equally important. I would give a close 1A and 1B to justice and forgiveness. I think a lot of it has to do with and one can argue that compassion is so important. So really, but I do think that a system that's based on injustice, it's based on dhulm, it's based on tyranny inside of a home, be it the way that we treat our kids, the way that we talk to our children, the way that we talk to our spouse, treat our spouse, abuse our family, God forbid, that becomes, of course, that toxic nature that you're talking about, and that dysfunction that we're talking about. So it's not like you have to go through forbearance and then get to justice. I think that whichever one resonates with you, and I think that we're all a little bit aware of what our family needs. I think that you can adopt that, and I find that these principles are such that they give life to the other ones by themselves. Like once you become forgiving, you become compassionate. Then you because of that compassion, you become humble, and then you end up listening more, and then you end up asking people more. So it's just kind of it's a domino effect that might be triggered by an initial principle that is very specific to you and your situation. Anybody else, please? The floor is open, by all means.
Maulana, this is Khurshid Ali. One question I have, and perhaps you may already have set up a system or a course work, a short course for people who are going to be newly or going to be wedding soon or getting through the marriage soon. Are you aware? I mean, have you set up some course like this, like every quarter or at least once in a year, or there are other Shia groups that they have set up some courses like this? Because what you have explained is extremely important, especially living in these days, either here or Pakistan or India or anywhere. But I think training our newly wedding people in the right manner and setting the expectations correctly, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, Khurshid Bhai, thank you for your comment. It's a beautiful one. I totally agree with you. There's lots of pre-marriage, post-marriage courses all over. At least I'm seeing it all over, up and down the different communities. I haven't done one in a couple of years. I've done a lot of families, but not specifically on pre or post-marriage. Maybe I should. But I do know there's a lot happening. I've even heard of courses happening in your own Detroit area, in the Dallas area. Other areas as well, and so I think that if you kind of keep your eyes open and ask around, I'm sure you'll find that there's a lot happening in terms of families and marriages. And I agree. I think that I liked your thought about quarterly. I think that once a year sometimes really isn't enough. Sometimes maybe 3 or 4 times a year, because that cycle continues, right? I mean, a person who was not in that married zone last year now all of a sudden enters that zone, right? I'm getting phone calls from kids who are asking me, what's the process? Lana said, how do I find a spouse? If I do find, how do I talk to her or talk to him? So things are rolling, and I think that's important that that we do have something that is quite regular.
Okay, Maulana, one question I got asked was, is the system of justice based on the 6 other principles and drawn from it, or is it based on Quran and Ahlebaith?
So I think
the question is, I'm not sure what is the source of justice.
I don't know what that means by source of justice. So everything, all the principles that I talked about are based on Quran and Ahlebaith. Justice is the key to everything. There's a reason why in the Shia school of thought, adalat is the second root of the madhab, of the ideology, because and the ulama have done a lot of bahas on this. Why, of all the attributes that could have been extracted, why was adalat extracted? Partly because every other attribute of Allah travels through His justice. If He's a razik through His adalat. If He's Rahman and Rahim, He is through His adalat. So everything is everything feeds off the nucleus of justice, and it's through Hadith and the Quran. It's not based on anything else. It's definitely not based on a capitalist society that doesn't know, I think, how to handle or implement justice. So I'm not sure if I understood the question, but I think that, everything else I talked about for the past 5 Wednesdays have all been based on Quran, the Ahlebaith, Hadith, the Aql, the intellect, those kind of things.
In response to Khurshid Uncle's question, somebody had texted saying, Qissa family does provide services to Muslim families. I do know that locally here, both Maulana Sartaj and Sheikh Osama both also provide those services. Sheikh Osama has done courses here. So for those who are looking for, English, he's there for those looking for.
And, just so you know, Sheikh Osama has done his expertise in the house on this topic. He's written his thesis on this topic, on family life, on pre and post. For several years in Toronto, we had him fly in and do a 3-day program, touched on everything, right? So I know for sure he's a big advocate of that. So you do have those things happening in the Dallas area for sure. Detroit area for sure.
Yeah. Any other questions to the group?
Yeah. So there's a question I have, if you don't mind, here privately. I won't mention the name, but when everything comes down to how your mother-in-law struggled and did things, and you are blessed to have such life, how do you address that? So I don't know what that means. If you can, the person who messaged me, if you can expand on that, I'm not sure what that means. The other one, which I found to be a very good question, was, let's suppose I messed up big time with adult kids. How do I go back to the drawing board? And the example they gave was only, well, I won't give the example, but let's say, for example, I, as a parent now, I'm almost a grandparent now, or I have older kids, and I get a lot of those questions. I delivered a few lectures in Muharram this year on this topic of raising kids and being fair and being just to them, and I got so many phone calls, not from kids, but from parents. And the only thing I would say to you is that, and this might be blasphemous again in the South Asian community, is address it with the kid. Pick up the phone and say, look, I don't know why, I just been really thinking about this, and I should have been better at this, and I wish I had pushed you more here, and I wished I had pushed you more here, and you also have to realize as a parent of adult kids, and especially if you're an immigrant parent, you arrived in this part of the world not knowing the culture, not knowing the language, learning all that, and somehow now uphold your Eastern values and Islamic principles in a very, very fast-paced, ever-changing, satanic society to a certain extent. So I would give yourself a little bit of a break, number one. I wouldn't be so hard on yourself. And hopefully your adult kids also recognize that mom and dad did their level best. Fine, they weren't, I'm proud of you, son, and I love you, my daughter, and pat on the back and big hug, and fine, they weren't like that. Because they didn't know how to be like that. They were never raised to be affectionate people. They never attended classes or courses on how to raise kids. I mean, they basically raised us as they were raised themselves, right? So we have to cut them a little bit of slack as well. At the same time, if you recognize that I could have been better, and this is how I could have been better, then, I think that it goes a long way. It's also good for your own self-building to crush the ego, to call up and say, look, beta, look, my daughter, my son, this is one thing that's been bothering me, and hopefully they'll say, look, mom, dad, you did your level best, and thank you for the phone call. It means the world to me, but we don't hold any grudges. Like, you did more for us than you didn't, right? So, you know, at the same time, I think it's immensely a healing process if you do that. It's good for your own ego. I think it also bring you closer to your to your kids as well. They can't always use the cop out that I had horrible parents. That's why I'm in my 30s and 40s and I'm a failure. I'm sorry. After a while, you have to own up to your own responsibilities, right? And your own failures. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So just that private question was a little bit set up. Sorry, it was further explained. Oh, okay. So this person privately is messaging me saying that, look, you know, how do I handle, you know, and this is a very cultural based question that, you know, because, you know, usually, you know, in other cultures, you don't really live with your in-laws, but, you know, they're asking that, you know, my mother-in-law is at home, and then how do I balance being the perfect housewife and having my house spick and span and the whole flawless house idea. And, you know, because you do have, you know, this mother-in-law who sometimes is, you know, holding a microscope to everything you're doing. You know, it's a tough question, and I don't want to ruffle feathers. I never understood the idea of the in-laws having this grip on their daughter-in-law and their son-in-law. Son-in-laws never, but daughter-in-laws for sure. This notion still exists out there that, you know, because you married my son, now you're mine, and so I can do what I want with you. I can deny you permission to go see your family. I can deny you the right to go buy some new clothes or some new jewelry. You know, I expect you now to keep my son's house spick and span, clean and flawless. I expect a fresh meal every single day. I expect the kids to be, and I think it's absurd. I don't understand. It makes me actually very angry, you know? And then it makes me even more angry when the husbands don't defend the wife, right? I'm not asking you to fight your mother, but I'm saying that you're in a very delicate spot where now you have your mother who's very close to you and very protective over you, and any person who might share your life is a threat to her, and you have your wife who's now entered this household and you're the only one familiar face to her. You become her supporter, her defender, you become her confidant, you become everything. And if you, you know, if you remove yourself from the equation and you let things go crazy, then it's you know, you're going to lose everything, right? So I would be fair, and if it's a lot for you, the person who asked, if it's a lot for you, I would begin to share it with your spouse if you can. Say, look, you know, it's just a lot. The expectations are a lot. This and that, and maybe not to cause any ruckus or problems, but just so your husband knows that, you know, I find these. So maybe he can kind of help out as well, right? It's a tough balance. I get it, but I think that if you're able to lean on your husband and say, look, I need you to be a little bit more involved in this process. At least be my sounding board when I need to vent. Let me vent. I mean, you know, I know it's your mother, but you know, who else do I vent to? It's either you or it's outside of you. I don't want to go outside of you when it comes to things inside of our marriage, right? So, I think it's important that we find that balance, because you know what, God forbid if ever you confront your mother-in-law and there's yelling and screaming, then that just causes a major problem. But if any of you right now on this call, on this YouTube session and listening to me, and you're a mother-in-law living with your in-laws, please, you know, remove the in-law title and treat her like a daughter, and you know, give her a break. And she's not your slave or servant, and you didn't you know, you don't own her. You know, she's someone's daughter, she's someone's sister, she's someone's niece, you know. Like, don't do that. Reverse the script now, right? If you feel like you were wronged as a daughter-in-law growing up in India, Pakistan, then don't repeat that with your new daughter-in-law. Let her have pride that I now have two mothers who look after me, right? So I think that would be very, very healthy. Hope that helps.
So you know, as we wrap up, inshallah, we'll give Milana a break for January, but fortunately he's been kind enough to continue in February. And so once we finalize the topic, I think we got the timing finalized, which will be somewhat similar to this. We'll send out the flyer on that. You know, one last question, Milana.
Sure.
You know, if Vince stayed, do you think him and T-Mac would have won a title together?
I don't. I don't. I think that I don't think either one had the Mamba mentality. I think that Vince was a great player. Obviously, you know, he took Toronto by storm, but he didn't have that Jordan killer instinct that you need to win a championship. When he clunked the game seven game winner against Philadelphia, he smiled, and that up until now that haunts us as Toronto Raptor fans. Yeah. So no, he wouldn't have. Same way Harden will never win a title because Harden doesn't have that thing. Anyways, so there's one question I have here in the chat. If you don't mind, I want to address it.
Yeah.
From Sister Farhana. We taught our daughters to raise their hands if they're bullied at school, but not if they're mistreated by their in-laws due to society, shame, and not being pursued. Yes, I agree. So at the same time, you don't want to empower them to be disrespectful or to cause problems, but I do think that sometimes you need to be vocal in the right ways and the right times and with the right person. Start off with your spouse and say, look, I need your help in this. I can't figure out your mother. Her and I are not jiving. We're not connecting. There's constant tension. I can't live like this. What do I do? And hopefully, and again, guys out there, please, I have in-laws here that live 15 minutes away. It's important that we support our wives in this. Same way they support us when it comes to us trying to immerse ourselves into their family, right? Don't wash your hands of it. Don't say, whatever, it's between you and my mom. Don't do that. That's not fair, and her especially. Okay, inshallah.
And as we leave, again, reminder for the community, if you guys can please recite Namaz-e-Washat for Shaheen Auntie, and we'll finish it again with the Surah Fatiha for the Marhuma. Bismillah.
We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our efforts in this month of December to strengthen our families, to prepare our families for the arrival of our Hujjat and our Savior. We ask you, Allah, please, to bless every one of you who have committed your Wednesday nights with me. May Allah bless all of you. I know it's not easy, especially during the holidays, but I have the utmost respect for all of you. I do pray for you. Please include me and my family in your prayer. Hopefully, we'll see you again in February, as Mawlana Akbar announced. We do have something special planned for you guys in February. Look out for the flyers. But thank you again for the opportunity, and may Allah bless you all, inshallah.
Okay. Khudafis, Mawlana.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.